All right.
When?
When. Remember that from Tombstone?
Yeah.
Say when. That's such a good movie, man. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Or it's sort of like the line in Pulp Fiction where it's like, if you're okay, say something. And she says, something.
Yeah. Dude, so many... Tombstone was one of those movies. So I saw Tombstone for the first time at my coach's house in college, and he had a Laserdisc player.
Never to be confused with that name that will, like the movie Wyatt Earp does not exist. There's only Tombstone.
No, Tombstone is the preeminent movie about that whole story. I mean, love or hate Val Kilmer. There's a lot of great jokes on the internet about Val Kilmer, but God, he's awesome in that movie.
Not a lot of heroes in Tombstone.
No, that's why it's so good, though.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not a hero's journey, so to speak. I guess Wyatt Earp kind of hero's journey, but there are no real good guys. There are no real bad guys. There's certainly no winners in that deal. Like, God.
I mean, Wyatt Earp certainly did some things that were heroic.
Mm-hmm.
And he certainly, as all of your heroes and all of mine, was a flawed man. As we are.
No. No. Flawed, yeah. So that's what...
At least I'm not going to shoot myself in the face while I'm after starting some terrorist organization, world-renowned terrorist organization, going to shoot myself in the face with my own gun. I mean, that's,
Yeah. So to place that in time.
That's karma, is what that is.
Today's February 1st, 2018, and one of the founding members of Hamas, allegedly at least, died after 3 weeks of suffering because he shot himself in the face while cleaning his gun.
That is not a good way to go.
You know what? The fundamentals are what get you every time.
Yeah.
You start thinking you're bulletproof, and the fundamentals end up getting you.
Yeah. I mean, cleaning your gun with a round in it, that sounds like a really, really bad idea. Right? So bad that you might shoot yourself in the face.
All right, so you were talking about heroic, right? You said Wyatt Earp did some heroic stuff. And you mentioned flawed heroes. So today, we want to talk about heroes a little bit because it's a great word. It's powerful, often overused. I thought we talked a little bit about our heroes, if we have any, that kind of thing. And what kind of spurred me to want to talk about this today is this beer right here, which I don't know. Hopefully, you guys can all see that clearly. So that is a very special emblem. And on the other side, it says 40th to represent the 40th anniversary of this organization, 1977 to 2017, right?
2 years before I was born.
Yeah. So Special Forces Operational Detachment, Delta.
Yeah.
I think we're allowed to call it by its name, right?
I mean,
it's a thing. There's a Chuck Norris movie about it, right?
So last I heard, only Eric Haney can call it by Delta Force. But,
whatever. So Delta Force was founded before you or I were born.
Yeah.
I was born in December of 78. You were born in 79. And we happen to have a friend that is really, really dear to us and a hero to us, who was a founding member of that organization, and they had their 40th anniversary, party, whatever you'd call it, last year. And the good folks at Southern Pines Brewing, which I think is owned by an SF guy, right? Former SF
John,
guy.
he's one of our cadre as well.
Yep.
So there's a couple.
Made this 40th anniversary edition IPA, and he brought us down some last weekend for our board of advisors meeting. And the can itself is so badass, you can't help but.
Yeah, it's a piece of art. It's beautiful. It's black. It's got sort of silver.
It's elegant.
Yeah, it's elegant. It's classy. The logo is, sword bisecting of whatever, badass. It's awesome.
The Delta, yeah. The difference
exactly.
makers, Anyway, I mean, it was an enormous gesture. I was really overcome by it. I mean, I just saw the fact that he had cared enough to grab some beer for us and bring it down and make sure that we had some. Like, I was really moved by the gesture. So I've been saving it all week. I haven't had one yet. I was tempted to a couple times, but I'm going to have my first one right here with you folks on the GORUCK show. Jason may have a 0 beer episode here because he's a little under the weather. He's playing hurt. I don't want you guys to think that Jason doesn't come in for you guys when he's less than 100%. He's had a rough day. He's playing hurt. We're going on with it anyway, right?
Yeah. I mean, thank my kids, right? Cheers to you, kiddos. You disgusting, dirty vectors. And yet, I love you so.
That's delicious, as I expected. It's delicious.
So we talked about doing the beer show next week, but
Yeah, so it's at one of our dive bars that we've mentioned here. We're just waiting for the weather to be good enough for us to sit outside at the bar.
It's got to be good.
And the standard of good in Jacks Beach, Florida is probably a little higher, especially in January. Like the bar's still pretty high. I mean, it's still over 65.
70s. Yeah, it's got to be 70.
I was going to say 65. I was going to say 60, then I was going to say 65 to meet your standards, and you said 70.
70s. Right, we'll just pop it up. It'll be great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to be cold either. And I've been on the record a lot of times as saying that I've been plenty cold. I'm all set. I don't need to prove to you or anybody else that I can be cold. I know I can be. I've been there, so why do it if you don't have to?
Rich is the same way, so back to the sort of, okay, so what's a hero anyway? I mean, I hear the word and I sort of roll my eyes a little bit.
Well, in the veteran space, which we've both spent a ton of time in.
That's what I'm thinking about.
Every soldier a hero, every service member a hero, every veteran a hero. And so, I have a little hero fatigue, if I can be honest. I mean, which is odd in some ways because I've actually had the privilege of knowing and in fact working alongside and serving in combat with people that I would absolutely consider heroes. And I've been very lucky in my life to have a lot of people that I've been close to that I would say are absolutely heroes. People that have done things with no regard for their own personal safety to help a brother out, who have done things at tremendous sacrifice to themselves and to their families on behalf of the nation and to the people that are around them that they're serving with. I absolutely know some heroes, and I've met a ton of them since I got out of the service, working in the veteran space. Like I'm lucky. I've definitely known and have had a chance to get to know some people that are definitely heroes, but I also can't help but feel like it's a little bit like, it's almost a little cringeworthy now at times because it's really...
You're like Rich. So Rich is a good example. We went to Vietnam together and sort of traced some of his footsteps when he was in Mac-Sog. And, by every definition, he's a hero to anybody that meets him. I just consider him a friend, and...
Best kind of heroes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just a friend now. And so, that word, it just gets super loaded and, Hollywood loves to throw it out there. And,
sure.
It's an easy thing to say, oh, everyone's a hero if you've done this or this or this or this. It's just, I have fatigue. I have huge fatigue as well, right? With the whole
Well, it's kind of like if everything is special, then nothing's special, right? And so if everyone's a hero, then, if anyone who ever wore a uniform of any kind is a hero, then how do you differentiate?
So is it who you are or is it what you do, right?
Wow, that's a good question. I hadn't thought of it quite that way.
If you go out and, for instance, the Medal of Honor or any of these sort of valor awards can happen in a millisecond. Jump on a grenade, attack a machine gun nest. There's, history's full of those kinds of examples. But how does that sort of work itself out in terms of who's a hero then?
Yeah, and the irony is anyone who's jumped on a grenade or charged a machine gun nest or drug their buddy out of a burning Humvee, they would never say that they're a hero. I've never met one, and I know some of those guys. They would all say, I was just doing my job, or you would have done the same thing, and the training just kicked in, or whatever, cliche stuff they want to say. They're not going to say like, in that moment I was a real hero, or I just knew I had to step up and act heroic. Like that's not the way it works. So, on one hand, I would say it really is kind of who you are. But, I think oftentimes we associate people as being heroes based on their deeds. I think the point of differentiation is less about whether it's who you are or what you do. And it's more about can you be a hero based on one instance, or is a hero a person who puts on their work boots every day and goes out and earns a living for their family, or someone who serves 30 years in the military and did a lot of stuff that was never, people aren't going to be telling stories about behind the scenes. That's where I think it starts to really blend, because at some point that becomes who you are, right? Because the consistency, the repetition, the earnestness with which you do the job or whatever it happens to be, that really is a representation of who you are and not just one instant of doing something. I don't know.
So what's the role of either a person being who they are or doing something heroic? It's got to inspire something, right? For me, I think back to my grandfathers, my grandmothers as well, and it was sort of who they were. There's not one moment that I would point to in my I remember I was going through college interviews, and this was in, say, whatever, gosh, it sounds like a long time ago.
96?
Like 96. And they asked me in one of the interviews, who are your heroes? And I said, my grandfather, and I gave a couple reasons. And they said, that's a really nice breath of fresh air because we usually hear professional athletes and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, it happened not too far from here. It's at someone's house in Marsh Landing, and I went over and it was just, I mean, it's probably the only question I remember from any of that whole process because of what they told me afterwards. So, you know, I think it's got to be more than just a moment. I mean, doing something heroic, like, yeah, that's hugely inspirational.
It's heroic.
Yeah.
Right? Just like, you know, you can do something that is emblematic of that character without necessarily holding that as part of your character, if that makes any sense, right? Like, you could do something heroic without maybe without being a hero. Is that fair to say, or no? I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud at this
semantics,
point.
Right? I mean, but you say sure. I mean, if you have, I mean, I'm not gonna. I don't know that this example. I don't know somebody that this example holds true with. But somebody who is, you know, not a hero jumps on in 1 second of their life, jumps on a grenade. Does that sort of? Are they all of a sudden bestowed this sort of title? I mean.
Yeah.
Sort of. Hopefully,
I think so. At that point, yeah.
Hopefully, it inspires something in them, in the world, the universe. But it's a little bit more nuanced, and we promise you a little bit more nuance than just, oh, you did this, you're a hero, right? I mean, you know, because you get guys like Rich, who, you know, he's got all the best stories in any room he's in. Period. The end, right? You think you're Billy Badass? Go spend any time with Rich, and you will figure out who reigns supreme on the pecking order, right? And he does it just sort of matter of fact, humbly. It's not a competition with him, right?
No.
And so
because it is no competition.
that too. But you know, there's a lifetime of service. There's not the one time he was here, the one time he was there. It's just, you know, who he is now. That became him.
Yeah. So let's maybe shift a little bit from like who qualifies to be a hero, because I think that's pretty subjective, right? I mean, if you're a 6-year-old kid and your dad's your hero, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, completely independent of what anyone else thinks of your dad or what he does for a living or any of that, right? So it's in some ways it's relative to who you are and who that person is and what role they play in your life and that kind of thing. And so I think it's worth maybe shifting a little bit and talking about like what's the value of having heroes? Because this is one of those things, just like New Year's resolutions, which we talked about before on the show, that like the pendulum has swung for me a little bit. I went from being a kid like most of us, and you have heroes, whether they're professional athletes or your grandfather or whatever. You really have people that you hold in high regard. And maybe with some naivete, right? But you have heroes a lot of times when you're young. And then as I got a little older, I started to kind of get to the point where, especially when I had kids, I started thinking like, I really want to guard against hero worship or idolatry and that kind of thing. Like, hey, don't put anybody on a pedestal because you're in many ways sort of doomed to be let down by them. And, you know, you should think for yourself and all that kind of stuff, right? Excuse me. But more recently...
How's that beer treating you?
It's good. I should have had an audible burp. That probably would have been more appropriate. Look at me being all polite, like I'm British or something. But it's swinging back a little bit now to where as I'm getting to be a little older and like having, I don't know, things in my life that have real gravity, I find myself looking to people and calling people up on the phone that I need a little mentorship from, or I've gotten to the point where I've realized that I can't just do everything on my own. I don't have all the answers. I can't just figure it out. I can't muscle my way through everything. And I really value now, really in the last just couple of years, tops, maybe less even, I've started to seek out people that are older and wiser and can offer me a little bit of mentorship. And it's been huge for me to have people that are willing to invest a little time in me and talk through some of this stuff. And some of them, I guess I would consider heroes. Some of them I consider mentors. I don't really know, but I'm starting to now see the value in looking up to people and seeking out sort of their wisdom. So I don't know, what's that been like for you? Like, where have you maybe seen pitfalls in having heroes, but also where have you sort of seen benefits in having heroes? Because America loves a hero.
As a kid, it's sort of, Michael Jordan and all that type of stuff. And, you grow up, you grow out of that. And it seems a little bit ridiculous now. And yet, with the coming on of the wars and the soldiers and all of that stuff playing a more prominent role in society, there was a big debate about who's a hero and what's a hero. And, heroes wear uniforms and, military uniforms, not sports uniforms, stuff like that. So it's probably a worthwhile thing to have. But ultimately, I think it was a really positive thing for me as a kid. I mean, it's sort of, hey, take Michael Jordan. Here's a guy that works really hard, that is really competitive, that likes to win, that sort of makes you want to be a better athlete. Yeah. And that's great. If someone can inspire you to be a better version of yourself, then it's great. I would say there's just always a disconnect between the person who is that hero and your sort of reaction to the persona that you have of that person.
We've talked about this a lot as it pertains to music, but other things. Like sometimes you just sort of have to be able to separate the art from the artist. You know what I mean? And I think that's really healthy. And I talk to my sons about this. You can really appreciate someone's skateboarding or the way they play football or play music and those kinds of things without having to necessarily get all wrapped up in what they do when they're off stage or off the field. Because some of the people who are most brilliant at the highest level of their endeavors, whether it's sports or music or art or whatever, a lot of those folks, I don't know if there's any causation. I mean, some people would argue that to be truly brilliant at something, like you almost always are giving up some other aspect of your personality, but like they're humans, they're flawed, they have things going on, and some of them are deeply flawed and are behaving in ways that you absolutely don't want to imitate. But it doesn't mean you can't appreciate their drumming or their guitar playing or their surfing or you take your pick, right? Or their leadership in business. We've really lionized a lot of business people, I think, in the last 5-10 years because tech and entrepreneurship and things have really started to be much more in the forefront. When I was a kid, there were no entrepreneurs that are business people that I look up to. Like maybe Sam Walton, I can maybe remember like looking at the stock. They used to post the stock price back by the employee break room in the bathrooms in Walmart. I don't know if they still do. But when I was a kid, they did. And I used to tell my mom I wanted to buy Walmart stock with my money that I saved from like mowing grass and stuff because I was convinced it was going to split and then whatever. Which, by the way, I was right. And I should have been investing every dollar I ever earned mowing grass or washing dishes. I should have invested in Walmart back 20, 30 years ago. That would have been smart. But anyway, but he was maybe I knew who Sam Walton was. And I thought it was cool because he still drove a pickup truck and was like ordinary in a lot of ways. But now there's the Jeff Bezos and the Mark Zuckerbergs and the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world. And it's easy to look at someone and want to emulate what they're doing because, especially with the way the media is now, you can see it. I didn't know what leaders of business were doing in their personal life. I didn't know what athletes were doing in their personal life back then. And now you have a little bit of a better look. It's still really slanted, I would have to guess.
The whole JFK, I mean, nobody knew what was going on back then. And,
Which is crazy to imagine that JFK could have lived the life he lived. And such a wide swath of the American public was largely oblivious to that.
Yeah. I mean,
flawed hero right there, right?
Yeah. I mean, everyone.
Or maybe it's not flawed. I don't know. I guess it depends on your perspective. Maybe he was just rad all the way around and wasn't flawed at all. We have some pictures of him here at the PX for sure. I
mean,
right?
JFK is the guy that authorized the wear of the Green Beret. So he certainly did something heroic for us, right?
Because Yarborough showed up at the pass in review with the Green Beret on. He ordered all the men to wear it and just showed up and saluted him. You've seen that picture, I'm sure, right? Of Yarborough, who's was 5'7" or something, saluting JFK and got the Green Beret on. And the higher ups were pissed because he just wore the Green Beret and said, "I'm just going to ask for forgiveness on this one." And JFK liked it so much and sort of authorized the wear of the Green Beret as a special designation. What's the verbiage? I keep forgetting it. It's a mark of distinction.
We got it.
Sorry to all of our SF brethren out there. Dang it. but wearing
it's
the
in
green
the
beret means
statues,
something.
it looks perfect.
Yeah, golly, symbol of freedom, mark of distinction, something like that. But that was a classic case of sort of ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah. So, you asked something else about mentors, right? And I think it's really important, right, to put it succinctly, because, I've burned my own hand on lots of fires, lots of stovetops, if you will, right? And if you can call someone up and ask them, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Like, I find it, when you're young and there's this aura of invincibility that you sort of have to feel, especially in something like special forces.
Or you'd never get in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you understood all the risks, you just wouldn't. No one would ever do it.
No one. It's just, you have to believe, at least in part, that you're invincible. And so that doesn't necessarily lend itself to, hey, let me call, such and such for. If you want to get into philosophizing about things, it's 556. It's 762. Like, those are the sort of philosophers that you're consulting with on a daily basis.
Yeah, for those of you at home, those are calibers of bullets, and I can assure you they don't care what color your hat is. That's a real thing.
Yep. And so and that's a more insulated community, the SF community. And so I had a lot of mentors. I had a lot of people that the community is built around. Hey, we're going to go fight together. And you need to be better than you are right now. So let me show you a thing or two, right? And it's not done all the time nicely if you're a new guy. It's sort of pay your dues and shut up and do exactly how I'm telling you to do it. And in that process, I met a lot of people who had a very vested interest in making sure that I could do something better, that became, heroes. I just think of them as friends now, but I respect them. The respect is really, really elevated. The ones who take the extra time to stay after work to show you something, or the ones who, hey, this is a better technique for how to go from your primary to your secondary weapon, stuff like that, right? And there's also that human bond that happens, right? I just personally, it would be hard for me to view someone as a hero if I didn't actually know them.
I like that a lot. I like that a whole lot, because I think it's okay to, like we talked about, to admire the way that someone plays a sport or plays an instrument or any of those things. But what I have found is that I get a lot of value out of mentors or people I look up to, or heroes, if you want to call them that I actually know. And by the way, accept their flaws and shortcomings and all of that, because we're all human. I get tons of value out of being close to those people. I get almost none now out of people who are on a pedestal or on the cover of Inc. magazine or any of that stuff. Maybe if I met them, I would, but I'm very hesitant to try to emulate people or take too much advice from people that have, just because I've listened to their podcast or saw them give a keynote speech and those things. Like, I'm always looking to get an edge and to learn and get better, but I don't really believe wholesale or jump in with both feet on someone's advice if I'm getting it over YouTube, nearly the way I would if I'm sitting down with somebody or talking on the phone with somebody I know and have met and knows me a little bit too, which I think is a big part of it. I value your advice and your input a lot more if you actually know me. And that's not because you're smarter or better, it's just because everything in life is relative. Everything is nuanced. And so what might be good advice for one person may not be good advice for me. And if you know me, you can say, hey, look, Blaine, I know you. I've talked to 2 people in the last week, I guess, over the phone, older guys that I've had a chance to meet, that said, hey, I know you. I think this is a good way to approach this. That's extremely valuable to say, look, this isn't throwaway advice that's from some canned speech that you give at conferences. This is actually good advice that is relative to me.
So how do you go about doing that, right? So takeaways for people. How do you go about getting to these stages where you're able to have these mentors or friends, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I have a fair amount to say on this, because like I said, this is a relatively new development for me and kind of my personal and professional growth, and I've learned the hard way on this. So the first thing the very first thing is that you need to be able to ask. That was the hardest part. I mean, maybe that's not the first step. Like maybe once you're in a position to ask, it's easier, blah, blah, blah. But I'll tell you, for me and for most people I think that watch or listen to this, like you're probably reasonably committed to doing a good job, to not screwing things up, to being kind and considerate and gracious and all that. If all of that's true, probably the biggest thing holding you back from having really good mentors or people in your life that can help you is that you're just not asking. I spent my whole life until a year or two ago just thinking like nobody really cares to spend extra time with me, or I don't want to pester somebody. They're super busy, you know, they're really important and they don't want to invest any time in me because they've got better things to be doing with their time. And one of the ways that I overcame this a little bit, but didn't quite break through, was back when I was in corporate America, when I was in sales. I had done a good job my first year and I'd gotten assigned to mentor a couple of new salespeople as they came in. And I was busy. I had a quota, I had work to do. But when my mentees, when they would call me on the phone, and they both called me a lot actually, they would always say, "I'm so sorry to bother you, but I have this question," or whatever. I remember being so thrilled to get their call. And maybe it's because I didn't love what I was doing that day, but I think mostly it was because I really valued the idea that somebody valued my input and I could be of value to them. And like, oh man, what's better than being able to help somebody out? And like, I'd love to achieve my sales quota, but the proudest moment I had in corporate America was that one of my mentees won the Rookie of the Year award and sold the most of all the other first-year salespeople. Like that made me super proud. It was hers, she earned it, but I know that I was there answering hundreds of phone calls and helping her and visiting clients and stuff. So what helped me make the shift to starting to be able to ask other people was, wait, if I like to mentor people and I enjoy getting their phone calls and it's not bugging me at all, perhaps other people would feel the same way about helping me. And so once I learned to just kind of send the email and say, hey, I know your time is valuable, but if you're open to it, I'd love to chat with you once a month or meet for coffee. I'd love to buy you a coffee maybe once a month and just
This is someone that you
things.
know, right?
Yeah, so step one is you have to get over your aversion of asking.
It's not a LinkedIn email saying, hey, I would like to have a virtual coffee with you, even though I literally have no idea who you are. That doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
Okay?
And you probably get a fair amount
virtual
of that, right?
coffee.
Do you get that occasionally,
I get that,
right? Okay.
yeah.
So I want to get to this more. Remind me, I want to come back to that. But so step one is overcoming your aversion to asking, which is probably the case for most of you. But step two is to evaluate what Jason just said, which is that you have to make an appropriate ask. And I think that's important too. So on one hand, I want to say, don't be afraid to ask for help or for mentorship. But out the other side of my mouth, I would say, the other side of that same coin is you need to make an appropriate ask. So you can't over ask. And then once you have a relationship and you can talk about these things, then it's okay to kind of formalize it and say, hey, I really appreciate the time we spend together. I would love to, be able to reach out to you every so often when I have a question or meet up for coffee once a month, that kind of thing. There's an appropriate ask. And then one layer deeper on that, I would say that's really important and has helped me a lot is to have a more specific thing to talk about when you're going to approach a mentor with something. So asking them to tell you what you should do with your life is just way too broad. They can't help you with that. Like I can't help you with that. No one can help you with that. You've got to make a lot of those decisions yourself. But if you have something more specific, then you can ask them that. So if it's like, look, I have a real estate investment question. I'm thinking about buying a duplex or a fourplex, and I know that you've been in real estate a long time. What do you think? Then if you can tap into someone's passion and their area of expertise with a more specific question, they're on fire to help you, I can assure you. Mm-hmm. We all love giving advice, right? We're not very good at taking advice a lot of times, but we love giving advice. So if you can put them in a position where they can actually help you with something tangible, you get that a lot. And the inbound stuff my way is a lot around nonprofits because I ran a nonprofit for 5 years and it seems like everybody wants to start one. I get tons of inbound stuff, but if your first email is, I want you to be on our board because we're starting a nonprofit, it's frankly an inappropriate ask because I don't know you, I don't know your mission, I haven't had a chance to feel that out. I have no idea whether I want to be on your board. And by the way, board of directors have fiduciary responsibility, which means that's a fancy word for your ass is on the line if that company defrauds people or invests their money poorly or is raising money in unethical ways. Like, it's a big ask for someone to be on your board. It's too much to ask at first. You know, it's appropriate maybe to say, can I send you a one-pager that summarizes our mission and our plan, and I would love for you to give me any feedback you can make time for. That is an appropriate and a specific ask. And
it's also appropriate to follow up if they don't hear back. Because lots of times it's not just it's just people get busy, and you know, you don't know someone as well, and it's sort of
shuffled to the bottom.
Yeah.
So let me ask you that. So you, whether you'd like to admit it or not, like, I think you're probably a hero, or at least someone that a lot of people look up to, because you have the special forces background. You've built a company that a lot of people are sort of very emotionally invested in. And I know that you get a reasonable amount of inbound traffic from, you know, a wide variety of people. So how do you manage it being on that end of things? Like, how do you go from someone who's, you know, looking for mentorship and always looking for support and having people that you look up to? What has it been like for you to become a person that other people look up to? Is that a fair question? You don't want to answer it, but
I don't want to.
But they want to hear your answer, so that's why we do it. And I'm sorry that you're sick today, but
yeah, you know, we play hurt, Blaine. We play hurt, buddy. You know,
are you injured or are you hurt?
That's just how it works. So, you know, I mean, look, I love our community of people, and I think the worst attitude that someone in any position can have is, man, there's too many people that are bothering me or want to know this or that, right?
Yep.
Well, once you start doing that, your attitude is bad. I mean, it's like, be a little bit more grateful.
Yeah.
You know,
when your customers become an annoyance, then you've completely fucking lost.
And I've seen that for some people over the years, even internally at GORUCK, where it sort of became, because our
pesky GRTs, so demanding. Yeah,
they're demanding, and it's like, without them, there's sort of nobody.
And by the way, without them, we cease to exist.
So I've found, you know, the three platforms that this sort of happens with are kind of Facebook and LinkedIn and Reddit, and I've found that they're very different. A lot of people
looking for mentorship on Reddit.
They're very different. No, Reddit has Reddit has nothing to do with that. Reddit is sort of a, hey, they want some sort of authoritative version of why. Mm-hmm. And hey, why did you guys do this? I want to know exactly why this happened, or what's this policy, or they want to go deep. And you know, in a world that is too often too vast and too shallow, like, I respect that. I respect the sort of, hey, let's go deep and challenge the assumptions. And sometimes it's just, look, we can't be perfect. I mean, there was a big thing about our shipping policies recently, and you know, a little bit of a debate about Amazon is great at this, and like, it's a little bit of just a different, like,
if you're gonna have Amazon, a rucksack that lasts a lifetime, if it takes one extra day to get there, it's probably okay, right?
Yeah, or returns or stuff like that. I mean, how many distro centers do you have? How many, all these types of things. I mean, Amazon is a distribution company. We're not. Like, we promise you badass gear, badass events, and a great community, right? I mean, Amazon's better at distro. Period, the end. They will always be better at distro.
I'll make the concession.
So Reddit's been cool like that. Don't get a whole lot of notes about, you know, mentorship or anything like that. Facebook, it's a lot of, you know, I mean, I put myself out there, and I sort of try to be really proactive about what's going on in the GORUCK community on the tough group. So that leads to a fair amount of sort of messenger notes, which it's cool. I mean, a lot of times I get good feedback. A lot of times I get, hey, this is going on, it's bad feedback. I did find that I refuse to have Messenger on my phone, though. Mm-hmm. Right? It's just one of those sort of lines in the sand. I just refuse. It's if someone is contacting me on Messenger, it's not time sensitive. Because if it's time sensitive, then they have other ways to get a hold of me. And
if they were resourceful, they could figure out how to get your email address or
whatever, that's pretty easy to ignore, really, if you want to, you know. But you say, look, that stuff, it's okay. I see a lot of guys, hey, I want to start this, I want to start that. I mean, what do you think? Or this person wants to join the military, or what route should they go? I mean, a lot of times I end up being a quarterback, right? I mean, for instance, someone will say, hey, I'm a brand new, I want to start firearms training, I'm a brand new shooter, what should I start with? And that is just, I am not your guy for that stuff. I mean, I was taught on a Beretta 9mm double action first shot, which I aggressively
15 pounds of pressure on the trigger.
Recommend, right? The first trigger pull that you're doing, it's like really, it's
gotta vice grip it.
Yeah, you got to really vice grip it. Now, we have Glocks now. That's a fine thing. But look, I mean, I've sort of quarterbacked that to go to Big Daddy or Machine or someone else out there, and I mean, then the LinkedIn I find is sort of the most opportunistic. It's people that I really don't. It's not as personal, because I'm not as personal on LinkedIn either. So you sort of get what you give in this world, and I'm less personal on LinkedIn. So maybe it just seems I just don't. You can only spread yourself so thin.
Well, a lot of people on LinkedIn looking for business opportunities too.
Yeah.
Like they want to contact you because they sell some software that helps you optimize your website or whatever, right?
Yeah, and I'm just not. I don't know if it's just interests or skill sets, they just don't really align perfectly on LinkedIn with that type of stuff. I'm a banker or financing or all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just sort of not that's work with a capital W for me. So that usually ends up not going very far. The stuff on Facebook that's hey, I took this class and this happened. I mean, if you tell someone a personal story, you're a lot more likely to get someone's ears perk up and actually pay attention to you. Like if it's a spam bot, whatever, it doesn't work. Like I know you sent this out to a million other people, and now I'm just going to delete it, and that's just forget it, right? It's gone, poof. So in sort of at a bigger level, I mean, look, part of the reason why. I'm happy to be on, the board of the Green Beret Foundation is because there's an element of giving back, right? Those to whom much is given, much is expected. No matter where you are in your life, there's always someone who has less, and you can always give back and mentor, or there's always, someone who's younger. There's always someone who's, grandparents and grandkids. I mean, that's a really special bond. It's sort of missing all of the teenage years of friction with your parents. And so I've always loved to see that type of mentorship and that type of relationship that goes on. And then, you have professional mentors or people that you look up to, and how do they sort of communicate and tackle the problems. And I hope that we at GORUCK are putting ourselves in a position where people want to look up to us for how we run the business. I mean, that's the goal. Sure. The goal is not to just be a great business, but by numbers alone. But it's sort of the how we do it as well, and that's sort of really ingrained in how you would say is someone a mentor, or slash and burn everything, cutthroat everything to get to where you want to go, Machiavelli style. I mean, that's just not. I don't really want to hang out with those people.
No, there's no destination worth it either. Not to be like too philosophical, but that's really true. There's nowhere in this world you can go that's worth burning all the bridges behind you the whole way there. You just find yourself on an island. That sucks. I like what you said though about you've had people that have been good to you, and so you feel some obligation to give back. I mean, I really feel strongly that way. Depending on how much inbound traffic you have, you can't give completely of yourself to a million different people, right? You only have so much time. You can't spread yourself completely. You can only get so thin, right? And one of the things that I really try to focus on, and I know you do too, is to spend as much time as possible in the areas of my life that really, really matter, right? So I want to spend a lot of time at work working on GORUCK, because that's super important. And I want to spend a lot of time with my family because, as it turns out, that's really important. And there are a handful of other things that are also important, but then the list gets pretty short. And so there's not much time left for other things. But I also look at it like, I'm still basically a nobody, but there have been a lot of people that have answered my emails. You know, like when someone asks me to come be a guest on their podcast, I basically always say yes. So don't abuse it. But if you have a podcast and you ask me to come on, I will almost 100% say yes. Because I have a podcast, and I've had a podcast, and I've asked people to come on who didn't know me, who had never really heard of me, and I've sent them a DM on Twitter or something, and I've said, hey man, we run this veterans organization. I think your message really connect with our audience. Would you be interested in coming on our podcast? And they've said yes.
But by the way, that person goes and follows. I mean, you follow before you just say yes. You know, you follow the trail a little bit, right? And you say, okay, what is this? And
yeah, I mean, I've not been flagrant about it, right? I've not been too cavalier.
And by the way, when someone digs for 2 minutes with you, it's sort of, okay, yeah, this is someone I'll happily spend an hour of my life with on a podcast.
Yeah, that's super helpful. So like, you know, maybe you include a link to your website or to your podcast or whatever the case may be. But it helps if you've got a little bit of substance kind of backstopping you. Mm-hmm. But people have been really nice to me. I mean, people have been generous with their time. They've been generous with their advice. They've, whether they've come on the podcast or, I mean, back when I was in the nonprofit world, people have invested in our nonprofit and donated and all kinds of awesome stuff that...
I'm so busy is a myth.
No, it's a total choice, by the way, and I have really tried to stop using that word in my life in general because we have a lot going on, but I tell you what, I think people think I'm way busier than I am, and I hesitate to say that because that's not to imply that, you know, we don't have a lot of priorities, but like I said, my priorities are relatively few, and I try to spend big chunks of time in each of them, but I get tons of phone calls and emails from people that are like, I know you're super busy, and it's like, no, I'm not that busy. You know, can we talk sometime in the next month? Like, yeah, we can probably talk tomorrow if it's important, you know, like, I'm not that busy, you know what I mean? I'm not running around with my hair on fire. And that's, by the way, that's by design. I take no pride in like, you know, running from plane to plane and train to train and always being on my phone. Like, that's not a great way to be effective at anything, by the way. Like, life is hard and problems are complex and you can't solve any of that with just busy work.
There's a time for that sort of hustle, and sure. You know, I got a few.
We've talked about that a little bit recently.
A month stretch here or there where it's just go grind, but it's not the goal. Yeah. Like busy for busy's sake, going on the circuit so you can be busy and you can tell everyone how busy you are. Oh, how you doing? Oh, I'm just so busy, right? Whenever I hear that, I really just want to leave, right? Well, fuck, you must be too busy for us to do anything now. So maybe you should go do something that's less busy, right? Go meditate or something somewhere. And, you know, or go do the things that you have to do so you can be less busy. Take your pick, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I mean, look, I'm not sitting here on the mountain sort of shaming the world. I've sort of been there, right? Where it feels like you need to be busy to show your boss that you're worth something, or you need to be busy to show, you know, hey, I'm doing something important in life. That's why I'm so busy, right? It's overused. It's really overused. And I think it sort of turns into this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, and not in a good way, of always actually feeling busy and stressed out and never saying, hey, I can actually not be busy right now, and that's okay.
Yeah, so this is what I would say, and I just was sort of thinking of this as you were talking about it, because we've done enough of the busy trap kind of stuff, but I would say this. There's a total difference between being busy and being completely engaged. And I think that, like, at least my goal, and you can make it your goal if you want, but my goal is I want to be as engaged as I can be as often as I can be. So, I mean, I guess if you want to call that busy, you can, but my point is I want to be doing stuff that I like and I care about and that matters a very high percentage of my time, but I don't want to be busy going from one thing to the next for busy's sake. So what that looks like in like my actual life is when I'm at work, I want to be engaged in what I'm doing at work and like get some shit done and spend time with the people at work and move the ball forward. But if at 5 o'clock or 5:30, I want to go home and spend some time with my girls, and then I want to be engaged in that. So yeah, I guess I'm too busy to like pick up the phone or do some random thing, but it's not because I'm running around. It's just because I choose to be totally engaged in what I'm doing at the time. And if I'm at the gym, then guess what? Like my phone at best is in my ruck, if not in my car, in the console. Like, does that mean I'm busy? No, but I'm completely immersed and engaged in what I'm doing. And I found that really helps me to be much more effective, and I feel a lot less busy, but I also feel more engaged. And those things aren't mutually inclusive. You know, like I guess what I'm saying is, not being busy doesn't equal having nothing to do or just like kicking back and laying on the beach. Not being busy means being completely engaged in what you're doing at the time, even if it's not productive or work-like, and then moving on to the next thing and being completely engaged in that. If you do that, you don't ever really feel busy because you're just doing fucking one thing at a time. Your schedule might be pretty full. You know, you might be... there might be pretty limited windows for you to add some new thing in there or answer the phone or respond to a message or whatever, but that doesn't really mean you're busy. It just means you're totally engaged throughout the entirety of your day or your week doing shit that matters to you. And
it's like quality time, right? You want to spend quality time in the various things that you do.
Yeah, like look, last night I sat on the couch and listened to like my wife ordered a record because we had a record player for Christmas. She ordered a record and it came in yesterday, and so we sat on the couch yesterday evening. It was a Ryan Adams record. You know Ryan Adams?
Yeah.
Big
Which
fans. One? It was, I think, 1989.
Nobody Girl or something or whatever.
1989, I think, was the album. There's a bunch of like Taylor Swift covers on there. It's actually kind of weird, but also pretty awesome.
Is it new?
I don't know how new it is.
Yeah.
So we listened to the Ryan Adams station on Pandora a fair amount.
Yeah.
We like Ryan Adams. If you're looking for Pandora radio stations, cutaway, Ryan Adams is a good one. Jason Isbell, we listen to a ton of Jason Isbell radio. Mm-hmm. And I think both of us listen to the Lumineers station is just kind of like the background of my life. It's on at the house, just keeps the kids calm. It's pretty good.
I mean, it's a morning thing. I mean,
that's our breakfast station.
I'm not against, I mean, back in the Team House days, it's like Metallica for breakfast, not a problem. But, you know, it's like you want to be right or you want to be married, you know? That type deal.
Well, you want your kids to be kind of calm at breakfast. You don't want a madhouse in the morning.
I love chaos, man.
Does your wife love chaos, though?
You know, less so.
I think she's okay with it.
She likes orderly things, though. She likes the trains to run on time.
She's good at making the trains run on time. That's very solid. We could use that. Anyway, so I think what was it? So we had a record that came in, and like we sat on the couch, and like I think we talked. We were gonna have a beer, but then we had too much. We had dessert instead, so like I was so full that I was like, I don't even want to have a beer right now. I can't even. It doesn't sound good. So we punted on having a beer, but we just sat on the couch and listened to a record. And look, I don't think you could look at that from the outside objectively and say that I was busy, but I wasn't fucking doing anything else. I can tell you that right now. Like I wasn't gonna answer my phone or my email, or I didn't feel like I had to be like doing flutter kicks or some shit. Like I was completely engaged in doing that. So yeah, it's not super stressful, but.
So to sort of take it back, I mean, I think we're two guys that people could look from the outside world and say, man, they just must be so busy all the time, right? And we're here to sort of...
That's heroic.
That's
we're
heroic.
Heroes because we're so busy.
Busy business guys, right? And sort of demystifying that a little bit, I mean, we're not that busy, right? It's not I mean, there's lots going on, but it's not something where, you know, there's just every 15 minutes is just scheduled from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. You can make the time for the things that you want to do. And so to sort of come back to some of the earlier points here about how you find someone, how you sort of create relationships and learn from other people, it's probably not someone who you don't know well, right? So you will get more out of a relationship with someone who knows you well more than someone who you look up to more even, maybe, right?
Yeah,
so,
objectively, their level of fame or success or whatever has almost nothing to do with their ability to help you.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, when people reach out to me, I've seen this a couple times where, you know, someone goes to an event with one of our cadre and they're like, hey, you know, I had this, and I never met them. And they're like, well, you know, they were great. Can you give me, I'm like, look, and they're asking me, can you provide some thoughts on this or this? I'm like, yeah, okay, here you go. But look, you had this great experience with your cadre or the people on your team or stuff like that. I mean, they're going to do a better job. They know you better, right? I mean, I'm just going to give you stock answers that I apply to my life. Yeah. That's not necessarily right for other people. And so it takes a connection and some type of an investment both ways for us to get the most out of this kind of stuff. So heroes or mentors or otherwise, I mean, the word hero, coming from the military background, it's sort of like thank you for your service and all of these things that are just the pendulum is
terms
swung.
That trigger you a little bit.
Yeah, the pendulum is just swung a little too far. But it's but I also think it's better that it's that way than not respecting those who serve and all that stuff. So
for sure,
it's here we are in the middle, and I never sort of, if someone says thank you for your service, I usually say thanks for paying the bills or something like that.
Uncle Sugar. Yeah, I mean the last piece I would say is you said an investment on both parts, and that just made me think that if you're going to ask somebody, if you have a hero and you want to reach out to them, or if you have someone that you want to mentor you, you have to be willing to put in a little bit of work in this, because you're asking someone who, at least in your estimation, is further along the path or more successful than you in what you want to do, and understanding that their time is precious. Like, you can't just throw darts and hope they give you all the answers, the keys to the kingdom, all of that. It's not going to work. I mean, one of the things I have done in the past is said, that's awesome, send me a one-pager that summarizes what you're doing. Let me look at it, and that way when we talk, we can have a more meaningful conversation. And I would say 90% of the people I say that to never get back to me. That's some bullshit. If you're going to reach out for someone and you're going to try to claw a little of their time away from them, and they say, that sounds cool, but take the time to write me a one-page memo that summarizes what the problem is, or what your business idea is, or your idea for a nonprofit. If you're not willing to sit down at your computer and take a couple hours and distill it down into a one-pager and send it over to them, that's not a dick move on my part, in my opinion. No. I'm just trying to have a reasonable filter to see who really, because here's the secret. I actually really want to be able to help as many people as I can, but I want to help people that want to help themselves. And so if you're just pinging me hoping that I'm going to float you some golden answer that's going to I don't have any of that stuff, by the way. I have no answers, but if you're going to put the work in, then I'm much more likely to respond.
And by the way, and then let's get some questions from Bomber. Yes. But a quick little life hack or life tip is the power of a handwritten letter is a lot greater than an email or a whatever. So
that's just better than Bitcoin, man, these days. A handwritten letter.
Want to make an introduction? Think about dusting off your actual pen and paper.
Man, we do it around here. I can tell you that. I mean, so I forget who said it. I don't know. Someone basically is quoted as saying that, quoted by me with no attribution, as saying that there's no technology that ever fully goes away. It just becomes more expensive. And I really believe that about the handwritten letter. With all the texting and this and that, guess what? Pen and paper hasn't gone away. That technology still exists, but it costs more, whether it's a stamp or in terms of your time, to make it happen.
Is it worth it?
But it makes it more valuable. It's like a handwritten letter is kind of like a cool pocket watch. Do you really need a pocket watch? No, but if someone had a really cool one, you'd be like,
it's awesome.
Kudos. That's cool, right?
Yeah.
All right,
Bomber, what do we got?
Lindsay's mom was on asking where she was.
I'm sorry, Lindsay's mom. I can assure you she's either working or doing something completely safe. Yes. I'm sorry.
So we actually finalized the fit block for the pants today, though. Women's pants. So we got tops and bottoms. It's great.
We owe Lindsay a solid because she's subjected herself to putting on clothes that don't fit and are new and being photographed at every angle. And I know how much women love to do that.
Yeah, she's been just such a trooper. So, yeah.
Also, the new version of Beached and Navigator, so we're coming out soon. I think this.
Yeah, so I think we said by the end of January at some point. I apologize. I'm pretty sure that I'm on the hook for saying that the schedule will be released by the end of January. Today is February 1st. But Andy behind the camera back there, we had a good talk a couple days ago, and we're first week of February, right? I'm getting the nod. First week of February, the water survival and wilderness survival events will be launched. Andy, are you okay with me saying what the names of them are going to be? Because we've had a little shifting.
Hey, if you say it, then we commit to it, so yes.
I think I said it before and we didn't commit to it, but Immersion, the water survival events are going to be called Immersion, and the wilderness survival events are going to be called, wait for it, Expedition. You guys wanted Expedition to come back? It's back. There you go.
Cool.
A few folks asked for special guests. I told them we had BB and Mickey B, but they were looking for
More special than that?
More
special than you, Bomber? More special than Lindsay?
Exactly. Cadre Ragnar was late. He wanted to make a note of that. He even messaged me to let me know he was late.
He was late to the live broadcast?
Yeah.
Is he normally punctual to all the live
He
broadcasts?
normally is, always. There's a few of the Cadre that are always.
Man, Cadre Ragnar. How was SHOT Show, Ragnar? Based on your social media, it looked awesome.
He's actually not going to answer through the...
Is that how that works?
Yeah, I mean, SHOT Show, does anything get done there except
It's in Vegas.
Here is the most common thing that happens at SHOT Show. Person A walks up to person B and says, "Hey, will you take a picture of me and all my buddies?" Right? How many of those did you see? It's awesome.
Yeah.
I felt like I missed out on that element because I don't really love the whole conference booth. It's kind of exhausting.
So neither of us really love Vegas in general, which we proved recently actually because we were just there. We don't really love Vegas. We also don't love the circuit. And there's not, you could make a business case for us to have been there. I don't know how many people asked if you were going to be there. I got a lot of notes like, "Are you guys at SHOT Show? Where are you at?" And I was like, we're not there. So you could probably make the case, but I don't know that there was a compelling business case for us to be there, so we didn't take our time and our money and go there. There's absolutely a case to just go meet up with a bunch of awesome people. I saw all the guys, all the Drinking Bros podcast guys, and
A lot of GRTs were there.
yeah, a lot of
Some the
GRTs.
photos, a lot of the Cadre.
Well, our good friends from Indianapolis were there. Bill Vernon,
Team
Yeah.
Ninja.
yeah, Team Ninja was there. Our friend Christmas Abbott was there, making the rounds. I mean, a lot of cool stuff going on. I'd be totally cool to hang out, but just couldn't justify the trip.
Yeah.
I hope you all had an awesome
Does
time.
SHOT Show smell more like beard oil or gun oil?
It's always a blend.
A blend of both.
Yeah.
You know what? That's a great business idea. You should make a beard oil that also works to clean and lubricate a weapon.
That'd be awesome.
In fact,
You're welcome for the idea. I'm not going to do it. But
all we have to do is take COP and put a different label on it and tell people that this is this is the greatest beard oil. Then you can always smell like you've been downrange hunting terrorists. It's awesome.
the last time we were in Vegas, I should admit this, but we were just nasty after being out in the canyon for a couple of days. And I took a shower, and we were gonna go try to grab a beer. And I was drying my hair off, and I took a little dab of just the free lotion, that's in the hotel room, and just put some in my hair. And Ben's like, you weirdo! You could have asked to borrow some actual hair stuff. I'm like, it's the same. It's fine. It's gonna work. It's fine. Who cares?
Yeah.
Anyway,
You
What
and
else?
I jumped the gun a little bit on it, but we have podcasts now.
yeah. So this is available in podcast form now. You should totally check it out. Apple Podcasts, and soon coming to Google Play and Stitcher, right? But we're not quite there yet, Andy.
Spotify.
And Spotify. So Spotify, Google Play, and Stitcher are coming soon. All the episodes backdated or uploaded, though. So we got 17 or 18 episodes in there now. Excuse me. And
Might as well just get that out for real next time,
I don't know. I'm like I'm like a little schoolgirl that has a little sneeze or something. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for myself. Anyway, we're available on podcasts. You should totally check it out. Listen to it on your commute.
Last thing,
Cool.
a lot of people have been very interested in what's going on in the background, and I am as stoked as they are when they notice the flag behind us.
I know.
I think that's what
The
I'm
background,
talking
and
about.
also the
Yeah.
Jaws poster, the Florida Motel. The background's
Yeah,
pretty
they
solid.
keep mentioning things in the background, and that's what I'm.
There's some
that's all I see.
Big Sky IPA back there with a
also got
special
the-
edition Delta
yeah.
Force logo on it, which is pretty awesome. There's a huge red, was that a 30 or 45 pound ruck plate?
It's a 30.
30 pound ruck plate. That's my favorite. That's kind of what I have in my garage that I
Yeah.
use. If I was tougher, I'd use a 45 all the time, but 30 feels like about right for most
30's
days.
good.
Yeah.
45's better. 45's better.
More is better.
Like
Well, it's
for 30 pounds just it doesn't really suck enough. And I mean that.
Well, the standard in the military is always 35 dry, pretty much for everything, right?
45 dry. Well, for us, it was 45 dry.
I think like the Air Assault 12 miler is 35 dry. I think Baton Death March is 35 dry.
I bypassed all that.
Well, you were never with us mere mortal underlings that served in the regular army.
Yeah.
You're so lucky, by the way. You don't have a full appreciation of how good it is to be in SF.
Sure, I don't.
I mean, look, I know you worked hard and did SOPSI and all that. You're under your Green Beret. No one can ever take it away from you. But you didn't suffer through the bullshit of being, standing tall at formation 10 times a day in the big army.
Yeah.
SF is pretty awesome. You had it good.
Yeah.
You earned it, but
I was
you had
happy
it good.
about that. Yeah. I'll take it. Cool.
That's it.
All right.
Damn, you look good today, Bomber, by the way.
Good
For all you
times.
out in podcast land,
Thank
Bomber
you.
looks really good.
Appreciate it, Jason.
Yeah.
No hair gel.
You guys are all heroes.